Now that we've seen how to work with Pass, how to create pop-ups or alerts and spinners, and also how to interact with the images stored on the device and the camera, we're ready to start our Instagram app. So I'm going to do that using the app that we created earlier. So this Pass one, but I'm going to take us back to basics and get rid of all of our code. Okay, so let's create the sign up and login screen. For our app. And we're going to keep this pretty simple. I'm not going to do any fancy stylings or anything like that. We're going to focus on the code. So we'll have a nice friendly welcome to Instagram message. At the top of the app. Then we'll have another label. Enter your email and password below. Then we'll have a text field. And I'm just going to use placeholders to show which box is which. Keep the interface really simple. And also we'll change the secure text key entry so that users can't see the passwords that they're entering. And then we'll have a button. And we'll assume initially that the user wants to sign up. But of course, there's a possibility that they already have an account and they just want to log in. So let's give them that option. So we'll have already have an account question mark. And then a button to log in. And I'll make that a little bit bigger because it's going to need to contain the text sign up later on as well. There we go. So this is a very simple standard sign up form and allows the user to switch between sign up and login. We'll see how that works in a moment. So let's create all the necessary outlets. So this is our email text field. Then we've got our password text field. And we're going to need an action for sign up or login as well to actually do the signing up or logging in. And then we'll need an action for the login button there, which I'll call change sign up mode, because we're changing from sign up to login or vice versa. And we'll need an outlet for that one as well. Because we'll need to update the text for it later on. And finally, we'll need to change that message. I'll just call that message label. All right. So that's everything we need. I'm actually going to cheat a little bit as well and have a default value for my email and password. Just to save me from typing them in each time. There we go. So yeah, while you're testing your app, doing something like that is a good idea, just to save you typing in email addresses and passwords each time you're running the app. Okay, so here we go. Let's first off set up the logic. Before we actually set up the sign up process, we'll set the switch back and forth between signing up and logging in. So our login button, all that's going to do, I'm actually going to change that to a space so it matches up with sign up. It's going to update the sign up button to log in and then change this text as well. And we'll have to have a variable that keeps track of which mode we're in. So we're going to start off in sign up mode. So I'm going to have a variable sign up mode, which will initially be true. So when the user changes the sign up mode, which they'll do by clicking the change sign up mode button, we'll check to see if we're in sign up mode. And if we are, then we want to change to login mode. So that means we want to take up our sign up or login button and set the title to log in. For the default UI control state, which we specify with the empty array. Next, we're going to take the change sign up mode button and set the title for that. So that will need to now say sign up for the default UI control state, because we're changing this here. We're now going to be in login mode. So we want to change that to give the option to sign up. And then finally, we'll change the already have an account label, which is message label, to read don't have an account. And I should specify text there. Okay, so that's what we want to do if we're in sign up mode. If we're not in sign up mode, then we must be in login mode. So we're going to change to sign up mode. So essentially we want to do the opposite of all of these. So we'll change sign up or login, set the title to sign up. We want to change the sign up mode button to have a title of login. So change back. And we want to change the message label text to whatever we have here, which is already have an account. There we go. And of course, we'll need to change the sign up mode as well. So if we're changing to sign up mode, we're going to set sign up mode back to be true again. And if we're changing to login mode, that means sign up mode is going to be false. Okay, and just before we run that to test, I'm just going to print here sign up mode. So we'll get some feedback that the sign up or login button is working, as is the sign up mode that we're in. So obviously we've got nothing pass related at all as yet. We're just creating a basic kind of template for a login system, which will allow the user to both sign up and log in. So here we go. Let's try changing to login. Yep, that looks good. And sign up. Already have an account is now. There's not quite enough room for it. So I'll just fix that. Other than that, everything else looks fine. And then when we press sign up, yep, we're in sign up mode. When we press login, we're in login mode or not sign up mode. Great. So let's just quickly give a bit more space to already have an account. There we go. That should be fine. Okay. Now it's time to actually do the signing up process. So obviously we're going to do that here in sign up or login. And this time we're going to do a bit of error checking. So we're going to start by checking to see if either the username or the password is missing. So we can do that using email text field is equal to an empty string, or password text field is equal to an empty string. And if that's the case, then we're going to show an alert to tell the user that they need to enter both an email address and a password. So let's create an alert. So UI alert controller. With a title of, I'm just going to use the fairly straightforward error inform, and the message, please enter a username and password. Actually, we want to be more precise there, and email and password. And the style, as before, will just be UI alert controller style dot alert. And then we're going to take our alert and add an action to it. And the action is going to be a UI alert action, which we're going to create with a title. So this is just an alert. It's not going to ask any questions. So we'll just have a single OK response. Style is default. And then all we want to happen when they press the button is to dismiss the alert. So self.dismiss, animated true, completion nil, because we want it animated, but we don't care what happens when it's finished. And then we'll present that alert. We'll need animated as well. There we go. Animated is true, and again, we don't need to do anything when the alert is presented. Okay, so let's give that a quick try. Oh, I've lost a parenthesis again. And just before we run that, I've realized I've missed out .text for both of those, which of course we need to grab the text inside the email text field. All right, so let's check that out. So we should now find that if we have values in the fields, it'll do nothing as before. There we go, that's promising. But if we delete one of those, it will then give us our error. Brilliant. So now that we're testing correctly for that, let's go on and attempt the sign up. One advantage of using Pass, or one of the many, is that we don't need to verify our own email addresses. Pass will do that for us, so we don't need to check that the email is valid. So as long as those two aren't empty, I'm going to attempt the sign up via Pass. Now I do need to check first off which mode we're in. So I'm going to assume we're in sign up mode first off, and then sign the user up. And we do this by creating a new user. And this is going to be a PF user. So this is a different type of thing to a PF object and has various user specific features. One of which is it has by default a username built in. So we're going to set the username equal to the email address. So that's email text field dot text. We can also set the email here. So email text field dot text. So both of those are going to be the same. Only the username of those two is actually required. So we need a username. We don't need an email address, but if we're asking for one, then it's worth saving that separately as well. And of course, we'll set the password. Okay. Then we take our user and we sign them up in the background with a block. And that's it. So again, we get a success Boolean and potentially an error message as well. So let's check first off to see if there's an error. And if so, we want to display that message to the user, because it could be that their email address is invalid or someone already has that username. There's lots of reasonable errors that we could have. And to do that, we really want to display an alert. So I could copy and paste this code, but that's a little bit messy. I then have lots of alert codes all over the place. And if I want to update my alert style, I have to update it in lots of places. So a neater way to do that is to create a method specifically to create an alert. Now I can't just have a plain old method because my alerts are going to have different titles and messages. So I'm going to need to specify the need for two variables. So the first one I'll call title, which will be a string, and I'll also want message, which will also be a string. And then I want to run that code there now in the create alert method. And then I can just call my method here. And so the title is now going to be in here. It's going to be the variable title, which will be passed to the method by the call down here. So create alert, and here the title is going to be error inform. And similarly, the message is now going to be this message variable passed to the create alert method, and the message there is that. Please enter an email and a password. So that will just do the same thing that it did before, but using a method. And the advantage of that is that I can now create an alert here, which will have, again, error inform, but this time a different message. Now, to see how we access that error message, let's have a look at it and see what it looks like, because we're probably going to want to extract a particular part of it to display to the user. And yes, we'll need a self there because we're in a closure here. And if there isn't an error, for now we'll just print user signed up. And just before I show you that in action, I'll just let you know about an error that I received occasionally when running this. So over in appdelegate.swift, we've got an option to enable automatic users. That can be useful, but I was getting an error that Parse couldn't modify the existing user when attempting to sign up the new user. So if you get that error, then just comment out pfuser.enable automatic user. We don't want automatic users anyway. We're going to create all our users ourselves by signing them up. Okay, so if you get that error, that's how to solve it. And now let's click sign up you can see, oh, it's doing something, and it did something there. So let's have a look. With any luck, it was successful. And there you can see user signed up in the logs. And if we refresh our data here, I've now got a user class, and there is my user with test@example.com as their username, and hopefully also their email address. Wonderful. So let's now check to see what happens if we try and sign up that user again. So if we sign up now, again, we're getting this. We're going to add our spinner in a minute so that the app is deactivated while it's signing the user up. And this time we get our error in form. And there we go. You can see account already exists for this username, as makes a lot of sense, as we've just signed a user up for that username. So we can get that error message from the user info array within that object. So we want to grab the error variable within the user info array inside that error object. So let's do that. So here, let's try and get the error message. And hopefully that's going to equal error.userinfo and then error to get the error variable inside the user info array. So there's user info and there's error. And we want to attempt to get that as a string. And I think we're going to have to force unwrap, or we can just use a question mark there for error, because it is an optional, even though we know it has a value by this point. So we want to display this error message if we can, and if not, we want to display some kind of generic error message. So let's start off by creating display error message, which is going to be something like, please try again later. And if we can get a more useful message, then we'll update display error message to be equal to that. And then we'll change that to display error message. And of course, display error message needs to be a var so that we can change it if we need to. Then we'll just change that error to sign up error. Okay, so that should work. Before we test it out though, I'm going to use our activity indicator to disable the app while the sign up process happens. And we're going to do that whether it's sign up or login. So let's write our code just before the check to see which one we're doing. So I'll define our activity indicator as before as a UI activity indicator view. I'll define it out there so we can access it from wherever we like. And then just as before, we'll set it up. So we'll put it equal to UI activity indicator view with a frame of a CG rect, which will be 0, 0, 50, 50. Next, we'll set the center to be equal to the view center. Next, just as before, we'll set hides when stopped to true. Then we'll set the view style. So UI activity indicator view style dot, and then the default is gray. Then we add it to the view. So we'll add our activity indicator there. And this time we will ignore interaction events. And I need to close my parentheses there. And then when the process of attempting the sign up is finished, we want to stop the activity indicator. So stop animating and also end ignoring events. So that will stop ignoring the interaction regardless of whether the sign up was successful or not. And don't forget yourself there because we're inside a closure. Okay, so let's just try that out. We should now get a more useful error message when we try and sign up the user with an invalid email address or something like that. I'll just show you we can actually delete users from right here in the dashboard. So if we select the user and then edit, delete this row and yes, delete, then that will delete the user so we can attempt to sign them up again. There we go. And actually, just before we run that, I did forget to actually start the activity indicator animating. Easily done. So let's check it out. We should now find that we get our nice activity indicator appearing and disappearing at the right time. And also that we get a successful sign up first time round. Okay, there was our activity indicator. And if we look back up here, there we go, user signed up. And then if we try it again, yep, interaction is ignored and we get a nice sign up error. Wonderful. So sign up is pretty much there. Let's get login working. So there's our if sign up mode. We want to check. There we go. So it's flashing yellow. So I've got the right one. So if we're not in sign up mode, we must be in login mode. So login works in much the same way as sign up, except we don't need to create a user ourselves. We can use the PF user class, and then within that, we've got a method called login with username. And make sure you get the right one. We want login with username and password with a block. So that one. So we want to log in with username in background. So the username is of course the email address. So email text field dot text. The password is the password. So password text field dot text. And then let's double click to create our block. So this time we should get returned a PF user and an error message. Probably not both, but one or the other. So as before, let's check to see if there is an error message. And if there is, we'll use our same trick. You can just copy that code down and change it for a login error. And let's just check. I think we need to unwrap those. Yeah. And there as well. I know they will have text fields, so I can quite safely do that. Okay. So if there's not an error, then for now we can just print logged in. And either way, we want to stop the activity indicator. And we also want to reallow interaction. Okay, so notice we don't need to do anything with that user variable that's returned. It will automatically be set as the current user, but we can access it if we want to. If we wanted to get the user age, for example, if that was something that we'd set earlier, we could do that there in the block. Okay, so now if we go over to login, we should be able to log in with this user because we've already created it. So that seemed to work fine. And there we go, user logged in. Wonderful. And finally, let's just try and log in with a user that doesn't exist. And we should get a nice friendly error message. There we go. Invalid username or password. Brilliant. So what you've created there could actually be the first stage of almost any app that involved a user sign up or login system. So feel free to use this very project in any of your apps that you're building because it's absolutely general purpose. Next then, we're going to create the page that will appear after the user's logged in, which is going to be a list of users on the app for the user to choose who to follow so that they can see the beautiful pictures that they're taking and sharing on our app. We'll do that in the next video.